Welcome to Flow 360. I'm your host, Diraj Adhikari. As always, we have a new guest here today. We have Jennifer Garcia, who is the Director of Product Management at HM8. I'm really happy to have you here. Welcome to Flow
Thank you,
360.
Diraj.
Yes, ma'am. We tried so long to get you here,
I know.
so it finally worked out.
Yep.
Um, First, Jennifer, let's get it started with talking about where you were born and raised.
Okay. So I was born in San Antonio. I have two younger brothers,
Mm-hmm.
and I like to throw in. I heard this from someone who went to Harvard.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, "I went from Head Start to Harvard. I went from Head Start to Georgetown."
Mm-hmm.
So just normal public schools my whole life.
So you got all your early education in San Antonio?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What made you pursue higher education?
I was always the kid who got really, really good grades, and so it was a lower socioeconomic area.
Yeah.
And so I always got really good grades, and it was just always a given, which it wasn't necessarily, unfortunately, like they didn't assume everyone was going to college at that time. But it was always like, where are you going to go to college? So, and I didn't have a lot of exposure to that. Like my parents didn't go to college, so.
Gotcha.
It was just, you're going to go, and we figured it out.
How hard and challenging was it being the first generation, first from your family probably, to pursue higher education?
Yeah. So my parents didn't, go to university or anything. My dad went to community college for a little bit, but I didn't really have like a resource, like people to ask questions. And I honestly, I had some, I have some uncles on each side that went to college, but and maybe an aunt, but I was kind of on my own figuring it out. Like I couldn't really, my parents couldn't really help answer questions. But I was in a lot of, I'm going to talk with my hands now.
Yeah, that's okay.
I was in a lot of programs for kids who are from under-resourced schools, who are doing well. So I had a lot of opportunity that I don't think a lot of other kids had. So I basically got SAT prep for free over the course of like an entire summer. I think it was every Saturday. And then I had other programs that I was in to get exposure to college, where we went to like summer programs on college campuses. So Trinity, Community College, I think those were the two major ones. I think UTSA.
Gotcha.
I went, or UT Health Science Center. I don't know. I was going to lots of different programs.
Yeah.
So, it was, I feel like that helped prepare me, but it was still a really, really hard transition because I wasn't really prepared academically. Like there was, I took my freshman year to learn how to learn. So my GPA was really not great. I was just kind of thankful to pass for the first time in my life.
Yeah.
That was okay. And then I just worked on increasing that every, year, every semester for college.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the time, especially if you go on a public school with Title I, maybe, around those neighborhoods, some of the courses that are offered don't really match what you're going to be taught in college.
Yep.
So it is a challenge. And as you mentioned, just passing makes you happy for the first time in your life, probably, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like before it was like, no, you have to have an A, even for myself, like that intrinsic motivation. But in college it was, I remember I was really worried about passing like short course calculus because it was just, you're learning on your own, and it was just so hard. But like I made it through and kind of figured it out as I went through.
I was wanting to know, you mentioned Georgetown. Was that the school in your mind in high school, or was that something that just popped up and you applied and you got in and you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna go here, or what was that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So initially when I was like middle school, I was all about like at one point I was going to A&M, and I remember I had A&M, like I had a sweatshirt. And then I was like, I want to get out of Texas. And so, and that was later in high school. And it just so happened, so my mom worked for a nonprofit. She didn't travel much, but they sent her to a conference. It might have been her first time on an airplane. And she went to a conference in DC on campus at Georgetown, because they used to have a Marriott, and now it's a different hotel. I don't know what brand. And she came back and she was, Jennifer, this college is amazing. You should go there. And I was like, I'm not going to leave Texas. So that was like 8th or 9th grade when I was like, I'm not leaving Texas. And she brought me a notebook. I have a picture of myself in a Georgetown shirt, and I was like, I think you're crazy. But I was always a basketball fan. Like my dad took me to Spurs games, and so I was aware of Georgetown for basketball. And then I didn't have exposure to different colleges. Like I wasn't going to travel and visit. Like we couldn't afford that. So I one of the programs I was in a writing program the summer between my junior and senior year, and I was one of those scholarship kids, and I made friends with all these people. And there was this one girl, Prima, who we were talking about colleges, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know anything about all these colleges. And she was like, well, do you want to live in a big city or a small town? And we were in a really small town in Minnesota, and I was like, definitely not a small town. I like cities. And she's like, okay. So then, she's like, what about like Stanford? It's not in San Francisco, but it's close. And she said, Georgetown's in DC. And she went through different colleges. And so I kind of narrowed it a little bit based on her information, because she had exposure. I don't know if she had visited all of them, but she probably had, like, she had a little bit of idea. Oh yeah. And so, I narrowed it, and because I didn't have exposure to these schools, the only schools you hear about are the big name schools. And so I applied to Harvard, I applied to Notre Dame, I applied to Georgetown, I didn't get into most of them, and I think I got waitlisted at Notre Dame. This is a good story. So, and I got in early to Georgetown, and so I remember at some point my high school counselor said, hey, Ms. Garcia, we had a call from Notre Dame, and they said, they noticed that your grades dropped. I think it was my junior year. Yeah, it's junior year. And we just said that you were really busy with, planning the prom. Like I was doing all of these things. And, is there anything else? And I was like, I couldn't think of anything. So I was like, no, I don't think so. So I wound up getting either waitlisted or denied from Notre Dame. Whatever. I went to Georgetown. I was set, right? By December 15th, I was happy. And then it occurred to me after like 6 months later in the summer, for some reason it just hit me. That was when my parents got divorced. So if there's ever an excuse or a reason to use that as an excuse for grades dipping, maybe I could have done it. But I'm glad I didn't. We were a really interesting class. I was just telling someone, like, we hardly ever had kids go out of state. But my year, I went to Georgetown, and we had 4 that went to Notre Dame. So I'm glad I didn't go, because I would have probably just stuck to the same people, Not that they did that, but so it was like the best school I got into, and I didn't want to stay home. I probably got into, Trinity or something. I don't even think I applied to UT, because I was like, that's too big. But yeah, it was kind of random.
As per colleges, you mentioned Georgetown, but like as a kid, maybe later in middle school or early middle school, elementary time, what did you want it to be? What was your dream job or goal as a kid?
It wasn't, I don't think I really had a good idea when I was like elementary age. Once I was middle school, high school, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. Like I even had like one of those chain things that said like MD. Like my mom was like, are you really sure about this? Because I'm going to spend $40 on this gold thing. And I was like, yes. Eventually I gave that to my friend from college who did become a doctor. But I wanted to be a doctor. And then I was in one of those programs called Med Prep, and it was, I think it was on Saturdays, maybe it was summer, but we would go, and it was from different high schools, so it was cool because I got to make friends with folks. But we would hear from different people in the medical field.
Yeah.
And I remember over and over, like there was an ophthalmologist that was really interesting, and he talked about opening your tear glands, which I've had certain things done. But I just remember hearing about all the schooling they had to go to, and I was like,
you don't want to spend that much time on.
No, I think I felt like I would be burnt out,
Gotcha.
you know?
Yeah.
And so I was just like, I don't want to go to another 8 or 12 years of school.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know how it worked at that point either, but yeah, I was like, no, that sounds crazy to me. So I ditched that idea, but I mean, I was always interested in like biology and the human body, but yeah, no. And then I switched to, in later high school, I switched to, I wound up doing business because I was interested in advertising, because as I said, I was like in all the class activities, organizing stuff, and we would make spirit posters for all the, you know, football. We even did volleyball, tennis. Like no one did tennis posters, but we did. And we would take, we would just do really creative things. And, you know, some of us would, like we had this one that said, I flip for football, and we put the word flip upside down, but then we turned the whole poster upside down, so the only word that was right side up was flip. And people would say, hey, that's upside down, and we're like, we don't. And so we were just like, you know,
experience different things.
Yeah, and just really like a creative crew. Like we had our artists. I couldn't draw. I could do really good stick letters, but we had our 2 artists, you know, totally different styles, and like me and like some other people would be like the creative people, and it was good teamwork. So that drew me to marketing and advertising.
Okay. As for your family, how supportive were they, and how much do you think parents need to advocate for their kids or support their kids, especially in high school time?
My parents were very supportive. My mom was really the one that was like the child rearer. And, you know, she didn't go to college, and she had some brothers who did. So she was like very supportive of like me doing as well as I can. She was the one that was like, you need to make an A+. Whereas my dad was like, oh, just do your best. So they were a good balance, even after they got divorced. Like, you know, like just they balanced out each other. But I know she got a lot of help from like the school, like whatever resources they offered for like, hey, come and we'll help you fill out your FAFSA form, or we'll help you with college applications. Like we both took advantage of that. And I know that she had no idea. Like now as a parent, like I know how complicated it is, and like how hard that must have been for her to go and like
back then you guys probably had those paper forms.
Oh, everything. Right? Yeah, everything was on paper. So I remember bringing him copies of W-2s, and then I'd have to go ask my dad for his, and like, you know, like getting everything together. But we did have people who were helping us, and like she was definitely pushing. Like she was the kind of pusher on the grades, and like, you know, like you can do better, you know, like kind of like almost perfectionist. And yeah, my dad was supportive. I feel like my dad was maybe more like, oh, you're great, like you'll do fine. You know? So yeah, I think that was helpful for sure.
Good. We all need family to be the support system for young kids.
Right. So they let me do, like, I was doing all kind of extracurriculars, so I never had to work in high school. Like I had what I needed. So that wasn't like a thing, even though I'm sure they could have used the help, right? So.
As for your first job after college, what did you get into?
Okay. So my first job, I had no idea. Like I used the career center at the school, and I remember the one thing everyone was applying for to be a buyer at Macy's. I didn't get that. Like I couldn't imagine myself moving to New York, but I guess I did apply anyway. So I didn't really get anything like out of school. So I knew I was going to stay in DC, and I just started, I don't know, peppering. I don't know what I did. But I found back then, I think some was online.
Mm-hmm.
I probably looked in newspapers, but anyway, I found, get this, a receptionist job. So it was a marketing and design firm in DC and DuPont Circle, and the receptionist was moving to another role. I think she's going to be like the executive assistant or something. And so they brought me in, and it was still a very decent paycheck. I was like, I can't believe I'm making this much for being like answering phones. But I mean, I feel like they were smart. Like they probably knew they wanted to move me into marketing. And there were 2 marketing roles. And then when I did move into marketing, it was only like 6 months. Moved into marketing, and that's kind of what I wanted to do. So I wasn't marketing on behalf of our clients. I was marketing our firm to clients. And so it was me and another woman, actually, who I graduated with from Georgetown, but I never knew her until we worked together. And we're still good friends, and we just texted the other day. So that was like the first one. It was just like, let me just get what I can get, because I need to I need to pay the bills. And then they moved me around, and I wound up staying there for 3 years. And I have to add, it was a really fast-paced environment, like lots of young people, and our owners, the husband was a self-taught designer, and the wife was a lawyer for the FDA. And so when they passed the laws allowing law firms to advertise in the 70s, I think it was 78, they said, let's get together and do this. And so they did. And my boss, the big boss, Berkey Belzer, was the guy who invented the nutrition facts label, and then also later, at some point, the energy guide label as well. So nutrition facts, the original label in like 94, was like, he did pro bono through his through his wife, Donna Greenfield. She knew people, I think David Kessler at FDA. So, and it was interesting because it was a very much a learning environment. So every Friday we had Friday lunch, and he would either someone internal would do a presentation, while you ate your lunch, or he would bring in other people. And so I remember one day he was showing, probably an old projector, I don't even remember, sketches of different iterations of the label before it was approved. So they tried pie charts. Well, most people can't read pie charts. Bar graphs, most people can't read. Like knowing how the literacy rates translate into something that important. Like it was just interesting hearing like the behind the scenes. And so it was really interesting because they cared about like furthering our learning.
Yeah. And I guess you probably learned a lot through those experiences to get into, more depth of marketing.
Yeah.
Awesome. And let's talk about HMH. What do you do? What's your daily job like? And how is the sector?
So I am, at the beginning you mentioned director of product management, and I'm over the grades 6 through 12 ELA product line. So that's, middle school, high school, ELA we're not supposed to say textbooks, but products. So it's technology, and it's still print. Being in ELA, print is not going anywhere. And when I talk to people on planes, they're like, "Oh, it's going digital," and I'm like, "It's not." At least not in this area. Others, other disciplines, like they might be more ready to do that. But you can imagine an English teacher is not going to not page through a novel or whatever it is. So, and I love my job because it's every day is something different. When I walked in, I was like, oh my God, I just got thrown a curveball. So it's always something different because we're serving the whole country. And it's not direct to consumer, but it's not completely like direct to business. Gotcha. And there's a lot of government. Each state has their own rules. Sometimes each district has their own rules. So it's really complicated. But but it keeps it fun. Like it's always different. And I feel like my job is basically problem solving and making sure the product line, obviously making sure the product line is successful, but doing that through solving problems and just prioritizing, because it's always something.
Gotcha. As you mentioned, middle school, high school education, where do you see the education system headed?
I'm not sure I can answer. Like I feel like I've been at this company and then like another company briefly, but for a long time, and I feel like there's always like a pendulum, shift. So like we might be in one area of things, like right now it's very like political. So like the pendulum is kind of very, there's a lot of, they want explicit instruction. There's not a lot of teachers, like teachers are leaving the field. That's like the biggest problem. If teachers are leaving the field, we need to make our products easy for anyone to teach, even if they don't have an education background or if they don't have a degree in education, but of course they're interested in it. Then, trying to figure out how to make things, really easy, where, we can't just come up with a whole new thing every year, it's hard.
Okay. Question for you that I wanted to ask in order, especially for our young youth who might be first gen or feel like they can pursue higher ed, but maybe they're a little nervous about it, because I was nervous. I'm sure you were nervous. Why should young folks pursue higher education?
I think it opens doors. Like it definitely gives you more choices. And I mean, I think it depends on the kid as well. Like there's some kids who like, you can go into a trade and make good money. And if you're interested in that, but if you're interested in like pursuing a degree, like you should do everything to make that possible, because you don't want to have any regrets later. And you can always you always have that degree. Like, and there's so many people, so many of my friends who like you get a degree in something and maybe you use it, but maybe you do something else. Like you don't have to have a degree in what you do. But I think it helps to give you a general, general education, like just kind of baseline knowledge of the world. And I feel like there's a lot of classes that I took that I didn't think I'd like, or like I wouldn't have chosen, but you have to take certain, electives or whatever, where it really expands your mind. And I feel like that is definitely worth it. And I know the cost of college now is way higher than it was when I was going. And I think you have to be smart about it. Like you have to think about, do I want to get in $100,000 of debt for this? But how can you do it? Like maybe you start at community college, or because there's a lot of it is experiences as well. And I think you could get that at a multitude of colleges. Like it doesn't have to be at like an Ivy League or elite school to have a great experience and learn a lot about life while you're there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like just here in Central Texas, we definitely have more than enough colleges for kids around here to pursue.
There's lots of choices. So.
Any advice for our young youth?
Oh my gosh, I should have thought about that one. I would say if like you're going to college, and this is advice I heard from that friend that worked at that first job with me. Her dad had said, you don't have to major in what you think you're going to do as a career. Like, because I was a marketing major, I thought that's what I wanted to do, and I did for a while. But major in whatever interests you, so that you stay interested in it, you finish, and you love what you're doing and learning in college. But then for your career, just do your internships. That. So like it doesn't have to be like, when you're 18, do you really know what you want to be? Like I feel like sometimes I don't know what I want to be. But you know, you don't have to make all of these hard decisions and feel this pressure. Like, you
Yeah.
can go, you know, study what interests you, and then, you know, do an internship that's really what you want to do afterwards. Because what if you hate it?
Yeah. True.
You could change your mind.
Yeah.
You know, so I think just if you can go to college, like, try to study what you want to study,
Mm-hmm.
and then you know, you have other avenues, and what you study is still going to help you.
Yeah.
So that's not a waste.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, being smart about the internships would help. And yeah.
Awesome. Any life advice or word of wisdom?
Oh, I feel like when I was younger, I put a lot of pressure on myself, like kind of perfectionist, like
Mm-hmm.
always looking forward to the future. And I feel like you need to just enjoy what you're doing now. Like, I had such a great time in high school, and I think I knew that at that point, but I was always like, oh, I gotta do this and do that so I can go to college, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, which is true. And then you're in college and you're like, I gotta get good grades so I can get a good job. So like, that's important, but like, you still have to stop and kind of smell the roses and enjoy and
Mm-hmm.
realize like, hey, I'm like, this is great. And I think just loosening up, not necessarily that you want to like be lazy or, you know, not
Yeah.
have initiative, but I think just being grateful for where you are,
Mm-hmm.
what you have, like, is really, really important, to kind of just maintain your balance.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I think when you're a kid, when you're a teenager, you think like, oh, I'm going to know. First of all, you think you know everything, but then you don't. But when you're an adult, then you really realize you never know anything. We're all just winging it. And I think
Yeah.
that's like kind of the bottom line. Like, we're all just figuring it out, whether it's like work, parenting, adulting. Like,
Mm-hmm.
everyone is just winging it. So like, you know, like, take it easier on yourself sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. We all need to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe do yoga to chill
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, if that helps.
Right.
Last question for you.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good one.
Okay.
If you could go anywhere around the world, where would you go and why?
I might. Okay. I might have two answers. So I went to Rome in
Mhm.
2008. It was amazing. Like,
Mhm.
that made me kind of want to go to Greece and maybe see all the ruins there, because I don't know that there's another way to really feel how kind of insignificant we are.
Yeah.
You know, like, if you look at history and you're walking down a road that was created in like 33, the year 33, I don't know, BC, whatever,
Mhm.
80. But like, really giving you perspective, like, just seeing kind of those ancient ruins is amazing. So like, I haven't been to Greece. I think that's a place
Mhm.
that I would really get a kick out of. But I wouldn't mind going back to Rome again, because that was amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, something, either Rome or Greece,
Okay.
one of those.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jennifer.
All right, thank
Thank you for your time.
Sure. All righty.
Appreciate you. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.